Yo, it's Marcus Scraper. So I'm so excited right now. And why am I excited? So as some of you may or may not know, I invest in Palantir stock. And if you don't know, then and you wanted to know, definitely follow me on StockTwits and or Twitter. And I usually make some of my moves and updates available there. And so Palantir stock, I started investing in this stock when it was in the $9 range. And then I started to just dollar cost average from that point. And I've been buying the stock consistently ever since. But I've been waiting for a special moment to double up my position. And that time is happening really soon. So actually, we had some interesting things, and a few things are kind of coinciding all at once, making it even more interesting. So first of all, we had earnings. And earnings was pretty decent, but there were some things that caused, in terms of an earnings per share miss, the revenue growth was looking pretty strong, but we did have a miss on earnings per share, and we started to see a decline in the stock price. But what else is happening as well that's even more exciting, arguably, is the lockup period is expiring tomorrow morning. So on Thursday morning, the lockup period is expiring, meaning that insiders and employees can sell their shares. So this is a really interesting thing. Plus, with earnings and having the stock go down a little bit more could accentuate and has accentuated this move already. So as we can see here, we were trading around $40 here, or high 30s, and we are now trading in the high 20s. And so this is pretty interesting. And could we see some interesting prices tomorrow and maybe even on Friday? I mean, how long does this go in terms of this sell-off? And when will investors start to jump back into this stock? So this is the question that we're going to take a look at right now. But before we get into this video, if you get any value from this content, don't forget to put a smash down on that like button. It really helps this content, helps other people see this video. And if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to this channel. It's free to do, and I'd really appreciate it. Okay, let's get into this. So back to Palantir stock. So tomorrow we have the lockup period, but then how do we know how long and will the stock even go down? So to answer some of these questions, not that we have the answers to these questions, but we're going to look at some historical analysis, look at some other stocks, lockup periods, and these stocks, I think I'll look at maybe 4 or 5 stocks, maybe it's 4 stocks. Basically, just on the top of my mind, I thought of a few stocks that kind of IPO'd and looked into what happened. So just in no apparent order, and also these are just kind of random stocks that I just thought of to look into. So these are not, I'm not saying that they're similar to Palantir, but let's take a look, and I think it's going to be interesting. So the first stock that we have here is Uber. So Uber, we can see back in 2019, this was the day here on November 6th when we had our lockup period expire. So we can see here that this was an interesting day to jump into the stock. And a matter of fact, this was the low, well, before we had the pandemic thing happen, this was the low in terms of what happened around this area. So this was a pretty interesting play right here. And we can see that the low intraday was kind of low. I mean, we actually closed in the green. This just means we opened lower when we closed. So we were down from the previous day, but this was an interesting day nonetheless. And what's the next stock that we have on our list here? So we have Etsy. Etsy in 2016, right over here, this is when the lockup period expired for Etsy. Again, we had a massive sell-off intraday. This was interesting. And it was also a local low. This might have been the lowest time that we've ever seen after this point, probably. I think it absolutely was. So this is pretty interesting. And also we can see even afterwards, we never hit this low. So Etsy right over here in 2016, this is when their lockup period ended. So this was a pretty interesting time to get involved with Etsy stock. Now let's look at the next stock that I just happened to look at. So Fastly. Fastly is the next stock I happen to look at, and it's a little bit different. We can see that we had a sell-off leading up to the event, and intraday we had some pretty low prices, but we ended up closing green. So we don't have to close in the red. We could be closing in the green. So this is just good data to consume and to understand, but still, irregardless of that, we can see that generally speaking, the next day was a red day, but generally speaking, that this was a pretty good time to buy Fastly. So in all of these cases, they're showing that these days usually coincide with some good buys. It doesn't mean that this was the lowest point. We had some lower lows in 2020. That's not so surprising. A lot of stocks had some lower lows in 2020. Now, what is the last stock that I have on my list here? The last stock that I have on my list here is Snowflake. And Snowflake oftentimes is actually compared to Palantir because they're both cloud plays. So if we look over here, this is similar to FSLY actually. We can see that this was the next day we closed green. Intraday we hit some low prices, maybe not as low as the day before, but this also was a good opportunity to get involved with this stock. Let's see what happened moving forward here. So this was just last month when Snowflake had this. This doesn't mean that this is going to be the low that we ever see for Snowflake. Snowflake could sell off further at some point in the future, but this was a interesting time to buy. So we did see some lower lows afterwards as well. I think Snow is not doing the exact same type of lockup period as Palantir, so there are a few differences with lockup periods as well. Sometimes they do it in tranches, and Snowflake is one of those companies that are kind of doing it in tranches to my best of my knowledge at least. So I think you just have to be aware of the type of expiration that's happening, and regardless, I'm pretty interested in what's going to happen in tomorrow's price action, and I will definitely be a buyer personally. This is not financial advice. The stock price can go much lower, it can go much higher, who knows what's going to happen. But I am, for one, pretty excited about tomorrow. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys own Palantir? And I'll catch you guys in the next one. And just know that a lot of these other stocks in these examples didn't go on as much of a run as Palantir's stock did. Palantir's stock definitely was getting a little frothy as of late, so a pullback was definitely warranted. So keep that in mind. Myself, I'm excited about the stock going down, but I have no problem with the stock continuing to go down, and I will continue to buy more as we come down. And it would be so crazy and so awesome if we see sub 20 prices in the near future. Not saying we will, I kind of doubt we will, but if we do, I'd be extremely happy about that. And keep in mind that none of this is financial advice. This is just some random guy on YouTube drawing some stick figure lines on a chart talking to you guys.